Hello and welcome back to Russ's Movie Corner. My name is Russ, and as you can see, I am sitting in front of my movie corner. Have my Through Faith t-shirt on, my Jesus of Nazareth video right next to me, and judging by the frame around me, we are not taking down Kent Hovind, but Creaky Blinder, and his video, Kent Hovind Says All of Science is Wrong. It's been a hot minute. Since I last was doing this, I've had some things going on in my life. I've been sick, and I've had some other things going on. So, now that some of that stuff has died down, you can kind of still hear a little bit of it in my voice. We're back taking on Creaky Blinder. And I'm going to try to get through most of this. I'm probably not going to get through all of it today. We'll see if we can. We got about 5 minutes, 23 seconds left in the video. I'm not sure about how much of it is his outro, so if we get to that point, then I'll just end it. If not, then we'll kind of continue on. In the last video, Creaky Blinder tried to say that the evidence for the Big Bang is, quote, incontrovertible, unquote. And I said, well, if it's so incontrovertible, then how come it is that people like Kent Hovind, Ken Ham, and other, creationists can poke holes in the theory, like the Big Bang does not explain where space, time, matter, energy, anything like that, okay? And I said, so if it's so incontrovertible, then how come we can poke holes in it? If you can poke one hole in the theory, it's not incontrovertible, okay? And that's when I brought up that, it's like we as Christians have a book, okay, that has incontrovertible proof backing it up. Okay, it has archaeological, anthropological, historical evidence backing up the claims that are made in this book. Now, is it every single claim? No. But if it's 95% true, then the other 5% must be true. Okay? And that's the problem with people like Creaky Blinder, is that they want to redefine terms and things to try to make it seem like everything is incontrovertible. That's why he said, oh, there's so much evidence for it. I'm like, what evidence is there? Like, the CMBR? No, that's not evidence for it, because you don't know if that's actual radiation, because that was made on an assumption based on what they saw on their things, and then they looked at it, and they compared it with other types of radiation here on Earth, and they said, well, it kind of looks like this, so we'll just take the decay rate from this, and then we can use it for that. And yet the Webb telescope shot pictures that are older, that have galaxies that are younger, rounder, and smoother, and older than the Big Bang itself. Hence, in my first video, I think it was, when I said, how is it that, light can be 46 billion light years away, yet the universe is only 13 billion years old? There's a time discrepancy there that doesn't add up. So if you can start poking holes in the theory, is the theory truly incontrovertible? Because here's something that's incontrovertible, as stated before. Need I go on? Okay. Gravity is incontrovertible. It works. We know this. But does the Big Bang explain where gravity came from? No. In fact, science has yet to come up with an idea of why is it that molecules are drawn in, and how is it that this force called gravity ends up, binding certain molecules together, but not other molecules. Why isn't everything in just one gigantic ball if gravity is so powerful? Because we've seen how powerful gravity can be, because we've seen stars, and we've seen things, and we've seen gravitational lensing. We know gravity can be a very powerful force at times. But how come there's galaxies? How come there isn't just one gigantic big star? Or one, big solar system where everything is just, massively gigantic because gravity's so big. Gravity's so powerful. It doesn't make any sense. Why are things in lumps? Why is it that certain galaxies are getting closer to other galaxies when they should all be moving away from each other? Why are they suddenly moving in the opposite direction of where they should be moving from? Why are galaxies colliding? Those are questions that I've asked that I have yet to have an answer for. Let's jump back into this.
It takes gas to run a machine, doesn't it? Where did the laws come from? Who made the laws of centrifugal force, inertia, Boyle's law, gas law? Who made these laws, huh?
Who made the laws of physics? Seriously? Well, there was a lot of different people who actually existed.
No, Creaky. The people didn't make the laws. They put name to them. As stated in my last video, okay? Newton wasn't just floating around in space and then happened to see an apple start to fall towards the earth and went, oh, gravity! And then everybody went. Gravity's existed for a lot longer than Newton, son. Fucking get your head out of your ass, man. God. Those laws existed long before people put name to them. Okay? The Venturi effect. Long before Venturi put his name to the Venturi effect, the Venturi effect worked. And long before I knew what the Venturi effect was, I knew what it was because you could stand in between two buildings and the wind gets way faster because it narrows, and so the molecules move faster through a narrower space. But did Venturi make that? No. That's just what happens. He put a name to it. He basically said, when you narrow the space, the molecules move way faster. In fact, that's how some things work in flow meters, in instrumentation. Okay? You literally have a plate with a hole in it, and the water or the liquid goes through the hole, okay, and it flows out the other side much faster, and you take the differences in pressure, and you can tell how fast the stuff is flowing through the pipe. So, sorry, son, you don't have a leg to stand on. That's not an argument. Oh, there was all these real-world people that just put name to it. But where did they come from? Not the people, the laws that they put name to. Where did those laws come from? You have to answer that, and it's not, because Newton put name to it, and Venturi put name to it, and Boyle put name to it, and these put... No! They just put name to them. Where did the laws come from? The actual fundamental physical laws. Where did they come from?
At some point in time, Isaac Newton, for example, formulated the 3 laws of motion.
Yes, he did. Based on what? Observation, testing, demonstration, study. Gee, what do we call that again? Oh, that's right, the scientific method. Okay, and he realized that when he had an object, okay, sitting on a flat surface, it didn't move unless he pushed it or something pushed it. Okay? Some other force hit it in some way, then it would move. Okay? And that force acting on that object is equal to the mass times its acceleration. Okay? And for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Okay? Dribbling a basketball. Bouncing this ball off my floor, okay, is proof of that, right? For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. It falls to the floor, it bounces. Okay? What is that equal and opposite reaction? It bounces. If I were to take this and throw it against the wall, what's going to happen? It's going to hit the wall, and it's going to either come back at me, or if I'm not facing straight onto the wall, okay, and I were to hit the wall at, like, say, a 45-degree angle, what's the ball going to do? It's going to spin at 45, it's going to hit the wall, and then it's going to turn at 45 degrees, and it's going to go 45 degrees in the opposite direction. Okay? Anyone who's played racquetball knows law number 3 exists, because that's how the game of racquetball is played. How you hit the ball to the wall is proportional to how it comes back to you. Okay? It's law number 3 it's basically all 3 laws put into one game. Okay? When you drop that ball and you hit it with the racket, okay, it remains in rest in your hand until you drop it to the floor and then you hit it. Right? And the force on that object is equal to the mass of the racquetball times the acceleration, which is the racket hitting it. Right? Which is, the body in motion remains in motion unless acted upon by an external force. And what do we know this by? Oh, that's right. Satellites in space. That's why things orbit the Earth so fast. Because they remain in motion unless acted upon by an external force. And usually, what is that external force? Thrusters of some kind. Okay? And for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. And we know this. Okay? But did these exist before Newton wrote them down? Can I take this ball, okay, in the 1400s, could I have taken a ball and thrown it, and then somebody took a stick and hit it? Would it have, would that motion remain in motion until the guy hit it with the stick? Yes. And then, when he hit it with the stick, does it go in another direction? Yes. Is the force acting on that object equal to the mass of that object times its acceleration? Yes. Did that exist prior to Isaac Newton? Yes. Because catapults existed. Spears existed. Bows and arrows existed. So, where did those laws come from? That's what we're talking about here, Creaky. And you're saying that until Newton, that didn't exist. That's a fairy tale, son. Because those existed long before Newton wrote them down. He just happened to study, observe, test, and demonstrate these things, and then wrote them down. That's it. Oh, and by the way, Newton was a Christian, son.
Which formulated the relationship between motion and objects, and also the law of universal gravitation, the latter of which could be used to explain the behavior not only of fallen bodies on the Earth, but also planets and other celestial bodies.
It explains why things do what they do. But that doesn't explain where the law originally came from. Because Newton didn't make up the law. Newton was not God who said, hey, by the way, this earth is being held together because I created this force called gravity. No, he said the reason why we're on this earth is because of gravity. And here's why. And that became his universal law of gravitation. And then he studied that to come up with the idea that, yeah, things fall to the floor at a certain rate of speed. And in the absence of air, everything falls to the ground at the same rate of speed. Which we saw, okay? Because if you go watch, I think it was Apollo 16, the guy, you can actually search it. Just search Apollo physics experiment, hammer and feather, okay? And you can see where they actually brought a hammer and a feather to the moon, and they dropped them at the same time. And guess what? They both hit the ground at the same time because there was no air on the moon. Well, very little atmosphere on the moon. I mean, because the molecules don't really stick to that very well. I mean, you could argue that there's like about, a picometer of air molecules near the surface. Okay, but it's not enough to actually affect anything. Okay, and it was so funny because the Mythbusters, okay, were like, we're going to test this. So they went out and they dropped a feather and a hammer a bunch of times in air. Okay, just outside in normal things. And then Jamie Hyneman got, they put a camera inside the vacuum chamber, okay, at NASA. And then they said, okay, Jamie Hyneman, he got in a suit. They turned on the camera. He went in. They sucked all the air out of it. Had very little air in it. And then he went and he dropped the feather and the hammer at the same time, and they hit the ground at the same speed. Then he leaned over, he picked them up, and he dropped them again. Again, did Newton create that? No, he didn't create the laws. He just wrote them down based on observations. Based on what he could observe, study, test, and demonstrate. That's what he wrote down. And that's all he wrote down. Because he didn't create the laws, son. He just put pen to them. That's it.
You do like a stupid question, Kent, don't you?
Star formation. Stars form inside relatively dense concentrations of interstellar gas. Stop right there. You talk about a big lie. I like watching your nose grow, you atheist. Listen, there's not going to be any clouds of gas. They're all getting further apart. Think about it.
Excellent advice, Kent. And scientists, real scientists I mean, have been doing exactly that for thousands of years. That's why we know so much about things.
No, they haven't been doing that. In fact, before Hubble, they didn't even know what that was. They thought they were like just big stars. Okay? And it wasn't until the optics got to a certain part when we actually had telescopes like the Wilson Observatory down in California and others like it around the world back in the early 1900s was when they started discovering that these objects were not just stars. There was nebulas, there was other galaxies, there was other planets, there was all these. They were like, whoa, what's going on here? Okay? So, no. And since discovering these supposed stellar nurseries, they call these dust clouds stellar nurseries, they've never, ever, ever seen a star form. Again, as stated, they've seen dust clouds. And they've seen what looks like stars in the dust clouds. But they can't say whether or not the stars are in the dust clouds being formed or on the other side of the dust clouds where we're seeing them through the dust clouds. Because the dust clouds are translucent. Right? We can see to the other side of them. So is the star in the dust cloud or is it on the other side of the dust cloud? No astronomer has ever answered that. They just assume that it's inside the dust cloud and it's being formed. Do they know that for sure? Have they actually gone to that dust cloud and made sure that that star is inside the dust cloud or on the other side of it? Because again, our individual constellations that we see in the sky every single night, doesn't matter if you're in the southern hemisphere, northern hemisphere, whatever constellations you're looking at, those stars are not the same distance apart. Some of them could be fairly close, some of them could be really far away on the other side of the galaxy. But like those little shadow puzzles, you know, like when you're standing on one side and you see something and then you walk around to the other side and then you see like an object or a dragon or an animal or whatever, okay, a sign that says, made in USA or whatever, doesn't matter, okay? That's basically what we're seeing. Okay, we're lined up to where we're like, oh, that looks like a man. Talking about Orion. Okay, and that looks like a man. I mean, he got a tunic on. He's got a belt with 3 little stars that make like a little belt. He's got a little hand out. He's got, some stars making a little club. Ursa Major, that one looks kind of like a bear, and that looks like a ladle, so we call it the Big Dipper. And then that one looks like a smaller ladle, so we call that one the Little Dipper. Come on, man. Seriously. They don't know. And the sheer fact that you are sitting there saying that beyond the shadow of a doubt, they absolutely do know that this is what this stuff is. This means that you have no clue what is actually going on in the scientific community. You are staking so much on faith that these fallible human beings know what they're talking about. And, know it better than the creator that created them, and therefore the Christians who have the book that says this is what is going on. And you want us to believe that that's science! Exclamation point trademarked. Sorry, son. Not gonna fly. Not gonna fly at all.
It's easy to dish out advice, Kent. Maybe you should think about taking some of it yourself and start thinking about how incredibly stupid you sound when you try to claim that you are right and every scientist ever is wrong.
No, he never said that. He never said that. Again, that's the generalization fallacy we're talking about. When did Kent ever say, every scientist in history is wrong, and I'm the only one that knows what's right? What have I been saying the last 6 videos or so? What is science? 4 things, Creaky. 4 things. Observe, study, test, demonstrate. What have you observed? Have you personally observed anything in the night sky that equals star formation, okay, redshift, anything like that? Have you personally seen it? Have you studied it? Have you studied astronomy? Have you gone to telescopes? Have you looked through the telescopes? Have you actually studied the star movements and the planetary movements and all of that kind of stuff? Have you? Have you tested to know that that's what's going on in a dust cloud? Have you demonstrated that that's what can happen in a dust cloud? Is that's how stellar dust gets together and then spontaneously combusts into a star? No? Because the last time I checked, our sun is hydrogen, mostly. Hydrogen and helium, mostly. So what would the stellar dust have to be made of to become a star? hydrogen and helium. Do you know that stellar dust is hydrogen and helium? Again, just those 4 things. If not, then you're staking it on faith that those supposed scientists, okay, that mentioned all that stuff in all those papers that you love to cite, are doing what they're supposed, are saying what they're saying, and that it is the absolute truth. And I use truth in quotation marks because you don't know what truth is, son. Truth is a person in the form of Jesus Christ. You don't want to believe that, and that's fine. You don't have to. Okay? But you'd be hard-pressed to get me to believe that you want us Christians to take a book that is 95% true because it is backed up with mountains of evidence, okay, and throw it out for something that is made up because they haven't observed, studied, tested, or demonstrated. Now, can they observe stars for years? Yes, they have. And we see supernovas. In fact, we think Betelgeuse is on the cusp of a supernova. Okay? In Orion. Hasn't happened yet, but they think it's on the cusp of one. We don't know what's actually happening because we can just observe it from a distance. That's it. Okay? They think it's happening, but they don't know that it's happening because they've never actually observed what happens to a star before it goes nova. They just know that it happens. Okay? They don't know how it happens. They just assume that once the fission reaches a certain point, iron, okay, it can't fizz. It just becomes inert, and then that's what causes it to explode. Okay? Do we know that that's exactly what happens? No, we don't. Okay? We just assume that's what happens because we know that fission happens, and we know that eventually molecules that kind of fizzle out, basically. Because that's how we actually make plutonium. Is we take zirconium and we bombard it with other atoms, with protons and neutrons from other sources, to basically make it heavy enough to become plutonium so that we can put it into our nuclear reactors. Okay? In fact, there's a place near me where I live that does that. They take zirconium blanks and they bombard them with various gases and stuff to create plutonium. Because it's easier to do it. We used to enrich uranium into plutonium, but we realized that wasn't it was hard to do. So we now do it with zirconium because it's a lot easier. It's a less heavy metal, and we can actually bombard it with various types of gases to make it heavier, to make it into plutonium. Okay? But it's basically fission at that point. Okay? We fizz it until it can't, it's fissile material basically. Okay? So, and then we stick it into a reactor and then basically burn it until it becomes useless. It won't generate heat anymore because it's decayed to the point where it's the actual nuclear fission doesn't happen anymore. And then we pull those out, and then we stick it in the moon pool, and then we stick new ones in. Okay? My dad worked in a nuclear power plant for 25 years. It taught me a lot about what nuclear reactors do. Okay? And a gigantic fusion machine can only fuse so far before it can't fuse anymore. Okay? And we found that out doing hydrogen bomb testing. Okay, same thing with the Russians. They found that out. You can only make a bomb so big. After a while, it just doesn't work. Because the bomb's too big and molecules get too far apart. Okay? Like the Tsar Bomba, that was like one of the largest ones. They tried to make something larger than the Tsar Bomba, and it didn't work. It's the reason why we stopped testing is because we realized once we got to certain points, we were getting to the point where we were either going to A, burn the entire atmosphere, or B, the bomb just doesn't work because the amount of reactions by the time the explosion gets to a certain point, the reactions get to a point where they can't create any more energy. Okay, and the Russians found that out with the Tsar Bomba. Okay. Now, that's the reason why we created MIRVs, okay, multiple independent reentry vehicles, is because we found out that we could shoot a bunch of little tiny bomblets, okay, little tiny nuclear bombs that would be able to explode in relative, we could target separate cities, but we could also use that to just target one city and create a massive chain explosion. Okay? But again, all that to say, do we know that that's how stars are formed? No. Because we don't know how stars are formed. We don't know how our star formed, and we don't know how other stars are forming, if they are at all. And so for Creaky Blinder to stand there and go, well, we know. No, we don't. Just because someone writes a paper about a theoretical way that stars could potentially form, and then he inserts one picture of a gas cloud somewhere in space and says, this is a stellar nursery, doesn't mean that it is a stellar nursery. Because again, has that guy observed it? Well, he's taken a picture of it. But has he observed that star forming? No. He observes a star in a gas cloud. He doesn't know if it's in the gas cloud or if it's on the other side of the gas cloud. He just doesn't know. Okay? Has he studied it? For a few years. If you're going by geologic time, okay, will it have been enough time for the star to form? Probably not. Okay? So we don't know if that star is actually forming or if it's on the other side of the gas cloud, as I said. Because again, if you're going by their logic, by their timeline, there's not been enough time for us to know if that star is formed or not. Because we haven't studied it that long. We've only been studying it for about 100 years. Truly, if you want to really go by that, we've only been studying it for 100 years. Okay? Have we tested it? Do we know that that's how it forms? Because have we actually formed stars? No. Can you demonstrate it? No. So if you don't have those four things, that's not science. If it's outside the realm of those four things, that's not science. Okay? You can postulate all you want, but until you have concrete proof that this is exactly how it works, this is exactly what happens, this is exactly what goes on, you don't know. And that's the point, Creaky.
Now, I used to worry about making videos like this. I used to think I wasn't smart enough, or that people like Kent Hovind were so much smarter than me. But then I realised any idiot can listen to or read a piece of information and say, that's wrong, but try...
Well, you do it all the time. With this. In fact, I'll go one further and say most of you don't even read it. You just cherry pick information and then say that's wrong. You guys do this all the time. And yet when our side says we think that this part of science doesn't add up, you guys go, oh, you're saying all of science is wrong. No, we're not saying all of science is wrong. We're saying this is what we know, and outside of that, you don't know. So this is what science is, okay? If this ball is our knowledge of science, anything outside of this ball doesn't do anything. It's not real. Because you don't know if it is or isn't science. Because you haven't observed it, you haven't studied it, you haven't demonstrated it, you haven't tested it. And by your own admission, you literally just admitted, okay? You literally just admitted that you were like, well, I didn't think I was smart enough, and I didn't think that I was this, and I didn't think that I was that. Fine. Then why are you making this video? Because on your first response to me when I said that I wasn't a scientist, but I had done field studies in geology, I have studied chemistry, I have studied physics, I have studied biology because I was a parapro, and I was giving kids exam questions and various things to test their knowledge of theory of evolution, of different things. I was helping kids in chemistry. I was doing things in school that likely you've never done, okay? That was my actual statement to you in that, and yes, we will get to that, okay? We will get to his response to me, because I'm going to rip him a new one when we get to that response. Because I will show you just how disingenuous he is when he clips things and tries to put it out there as like, see, he said it. Yeah, here's what I actually said. Okay? Because you yourself, Creaky, have admitted to saying, oh, I'm not a science teacher. What science degree do you have? If that's your criteria, what science degree do you have? Because again, I'm not claiming to be a scientist. I've never claimed that. I have claimed to have studied science. Okay? In a practical matter. In the class and in the lab. And in the field in the case of geology. Okay? And so when I talk about things, I'm not saying I know more than every other scientist on Earth. I'm saying there are some things that don't add up, that I have done that don't add up. And that's the same thing that Kent is saying. Kent got a degree in science, became a teacher, okay, because he got a teaching degree as well. He became a teacher, okay? And he taught for 15 years. And I said, it's on you, Creaky Blinder, it's on him, to prove that he didn't. You can't just make the claim because somebody on Rational Wiki said, oh, Kent Hovind is not a scientist. That's a claim. The burden of proof is on your side to prove that he never taught anywhere, at all, ever. Doesn't matter where he got a degree, doesn't matter where he got a doctorate, doesn't matter anything. The burden of proof is on you to prove that his claim of being a science teacher is wrong. Okay? Now you have to prove that he didn't work anywhere for 15 years as a teacher. And if you can dredge that up, and you can put that out for all to see, not just a claim, not just saying, you're not a science teacher, you don't understand science. You have to prove that he didn't get a degree and that he wasn't a teacher. You haven't proven that. You've never proven that. Okay? And I'm not some super fan out here saying, oh yeah, Kent Hovind's the best. No. I'm not saying that. I've never said that. I've said the burden of proof is on you to prove that he isn't. Okay? Not just make claims. Because as you just stated, anyone can make claims. You've made claims about me, about Kent, about the Bible, about everything that are unsubstantiated because you've never proven that those things are what they are. You just make that claim. That's why I'm making these videos. Is because I'm showing people that your claims are bogus.
I find in a creationist who can actually back up what they say about how the universe began. It's like trying to find a unicorn turd.
Well, actually, son, okay, I do have something that backs up how the universe was made. Again, this book, which is 95% true, what do you have again? A bunch of claims that you yourself haven't substantiated. You're just saying that they are because other people say that they are.
Galaxies. One says that galaxies were born when vast clouds of gas and dust collapsed under their own gravitational pull. Stop. Do you stop? This is a fairy tale. Long ago and far away,
Yep.
all the clouds got together and formed planets.
I rest my case. Now then, when I am making a video about a person who I believe to be mistaken or just good old-fashioned wrong, I spend hours and hours reading, and it does my turban in. I don't like reading, but I do it so that I can confirm that they are wrong. I then look at why they are wrong, and...
So basically, you're reading what? What are you reading? Are you reading scientific journals? Are you reading scientific papers? Or are you reading websites that just say, this is how things are? Because it sounds to me like what you're doing is you're just Googling the Big Bang Theory. And, scientific evidence for the Big Bang Theory. And then you're reading a bunch of just random websites that just say, here's how we know that the Big Bang is real. Because have you trotted out a couple of websites in this video? Yes, I will admit that. Are those definitive scientific evidence that it happened? No. It's not incontrovertible, son. I already proved that. Because if I can poke holes in it, if I can poke holes in it, not Ken Hovind, me, if I can poke holes in it, is it incontrovertible? No. Have you poked any holes in the Bible? No. You've made claims about the Bible, about young earth creationists, about things that are unsubstantiated. They're your opinion of what you think the Bible says. Okay? Now, I have to pause for a minute. I'll be back later. Okay? And we'll finish this video because I want to finish this video in this one. There's only about 3 minutes left in this. Okay? So when I come back, we'll pick up from there. So I will see you in less than a second. And we're back. Just for a brief moment here while I kind of do an outro. So I went ahead and I filmed the rest of the 3 minutes of this video. And I found out that it took me almost an hour just to do that because there was a lot there that I had to do. So instead of making a video, since I've already had like 42 minutes in this video already, instead of going and having like about an hour and 43-minute video to go through, I decided to just say, I'm going to cut it, I'll come back, film a brief outro, which is what this is, and then the last part will be in the next part. So, smash that like button, hit subscribe, drop a comment below, let me know what you think of the video series so far, and as we say, we will see you on the next one.